Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Now, we have Dave Stevenson. Let's get on with it. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, ANITA. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so sorry, but we were watching, actually, the board operator and I were watching your videos. It's terrific. You are such a famous person. Is there anyone like you anywhere in the world that does what you do with your situation?
I mean, there are others without legs, but who probably do their own thing. And I've seen a guy like Casey McAllister do those events where they trudge through the mud in a race and stuff like that. But I guess as far as like what you would call able-bodied sports, as far as, you know, college football, minor league baseball, wrestling, the things that I've done, I guess I'm the only one, so it's kind of cool. I don't mind if somebody comes along and does it, but yeah, I guess I'm a one of a kind.
I was thinking about what a great motivation you are, motivation for a lot of our wounded warriors who come back and they have things like this happen to them, of course, with a lot of pain. It wasn't just casual. It was, you know, they went in with two legs and, you know, but they came back with no legs. Do you work with them and talk to them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very blessed that I played football, flag football for the Wounded Warrior Amputee football team. And, you know, even though I was born without legs, they've kind of adopted me as their half-brother and let me, you know, play with these guys and play against NFL stars and guys like Snoop Dogg and stuff like that. So I've been very blessed. But I do work with a lot of the veterans. You know, they see that I have been born and that I've overcome what I've come and and for them, you know, to lose a limb and to deal with the process of how do you know, go from right-handed to left-handed or not being able to walk upright and those kind of things. I think it's much worse to have had it and lost it and then go through those psychological things that you would go through rather than what I've done where I was just born this way. This is my normal. I don't know any other way. I've had to adapt and figure out the ways to do things. So I've lived my life one way, and I feel blessed.
Yeah, I was thinking about the emotional aspects of what they do go through. So you're being there, showing them, talking to them, must be just amazing. And I am so proud of you. And we enjoyed you at our Cure Medical Symposium. It was beautiful, and you did a great job for people. But let's get back to now what you are actually doing. Is it just motivational speakers, or I know that you were an ESPN for a long time. So what's your passion now?
Well, I'm blessed to work with the Disability Channel, which when I'm doing the things that I do, it allows me to go out and interview celebrities and sports stars and athletes and things like that. And, you know, I have them get down on their butt right on the ground with me, and I think it helps them open up a little bit because, one, they've never probably been interviewed by a guy without legs, and two, my interviewing style is a lot different than ESPN, where I worked at for 20 years and I won 7 Emmy Awards. Like, I try to do my homework and get information that'll bring out stories that you wouldn't ordinarily get from an athlete. I mean, you can get your DUIs and sex scandals and all that stuff. That's fine. You can ask that. But sometimes people want to know the motivation and the heroes and where they came from and those kind of things. So I've been very blessed to talk to Gronkowski and Larry Fitzgerald, and just recently with Don Mattingly, and I'm also working with the Disability Dream and Do Foundation. We put on baseball camps for disabled kids. We had our camp in Fort Myers last weekend. We've got our other camps coming up in Binghamton and Hartford, and so yeah, I'm real busy when I'm not speaking. I'm either playing sports or doing a charity event or spending a lot of time at Little League games for my own kids that are playing.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you just showed me yesterday. You showed me that one of your boys won. He was playing baseball, and I think it wasn't it? And he did something great.
Yeah, he crushed the game-winning hit last night, and I was so proud. I almost thought it was a home run, and I was about to start screaming as a proud parent. But, you know, it's wonderful to, you know, for me, you know, not having legs, seeing my kids being able to play sports normally and not have to go through the trials and tribulation, but also they don't have the pressure that I had of, having to come through because everybody was staring at me and watching me and all those kind of things. So it's nice to just be able to feel, your kids do those things and be proud and watch them and really, be blessed that my kids can do that with two legs.
But I was also thinking that because you're such a role model to them, that they can't cry meow, meow, meow about little things, that they see what their dad does. So, wow, what a dad we have.
Yeah, I wish they thought that way. I know, there are times when they'll be like, oh, I don't want to go to practice. My ankle hurts. And I'm like, really? Really? You're going to say that to me?
Right. My ankle hurts. Right. What's an ankle, right?
Yeah. But the funny part is, I have 3 boys and their friends all follow me on Twitter and Instagram and everything. And they're more impressed by what I do than my own kids. My own kids are like, whatever, that's just dad, which I think isn't a good thing because they have a different perspective on people with a disability because their dad's been like that. So nothing that I do really phases them. And when they're around all these people with disabilities, it's just, they treat them like everyone else with respect and admiration. And, I like to teach that when I speak to kids at especially at the grade school level, because you can still make an impact in them and make a difference when there is no prejudice, and there is no worries about inclusion because everybody's just kids. It doesn't matter what color they are. So my kids learn at an early age that just because you have a disability doesn't mean life is over. And I think that they take that now. And I think they're almost jaded and blind to the fact that I don't have legs.
Oh, I'm sure that is true because you have a great mouth. I mean, you say it how it is. You have a great personality. So, but the other thing that we talked about was how you've had to use your back muscles, your arms, and I saw where you started exercising in some of the videos that you're very powerful in that respect. You've made up for it in a different way, but it will take its toll, but you're getting through it. And I have such great admiration for you. Let me just tell you one thing you don't know. I never really had a time to talk to you other than when you came down here for that medical symposium. I had the pleasure of living in Minneapolis in the 70s, and the reason it was mind-blowing is because I started volunteering at a hospital, and a lot of young people don't even know what an iron lung is, but there was a woman who had polio, and she was in an iron lung from the time she was 9, and when I met her, she was 30. And I volunteered and did a lot of things with her. She could paint with a stick in her mouth. She could move nothing but her head around, and she lived in this iron lung. So that for about 2 years, for me, that was the best experience I've ever had. It changed my life.
Yeah, really, until you've walked in my non-shoes, you can't understand what it's like. And I say I live in your world, you don't live in mine, because people don't realize, there's a handicap spot to park in, but usually it's near the other side of the store and there aren't ramps and things like that. And especially the challenges now that I'm in a wheelchair and not artificial legs, the East Coast is very, very unfriendly to those with a disability. And I just, in this day and age where we're doing health things and we're taking things to improve our lives and extend our lives, you would think all these businesses are going to realize, hey, there's going to be people in walkers and wheelchairs and more older people living longer and longer lives that, hey, we want their money. We want to make it easier. We don't want to make it harder. And I'm hoping that kind of happens in the next few years because Florida's, a beautiful state and they do really well. And there's a lot of people with vast backgrounds and ages, and they take care of those with disabilities. And I think the East Coast really could learn from what you guys do down there.
Well, let me ask you a question. The ADA, isn't that specific enough? I mean, when people build anything, shouldn't it always include that?
Anita, there are so many clauses and loopholes and grandfather things that they could say, oh, we're historic or we were built before this or it would cost too much. I mean, there's always excuses. There's never results. And if somebody really wanted to champion that, people in Massachusetts and New York, and there'd be a lot of businesses in trouble just because of the old storefronts and the way they're built. But, you see these things. And as I said, more and more people, as we continue to advance health and technology and medicines and things like that, our generation's going to, we've already exceeded the what we were supposed to live to, 20 and 30 years ago, and we're going to continue that. So, especially in my old age, there's not going to be a magic like Jetsons thing that is going to hover me around, I don't think. So,
I think there may be. I just heard where for the first time they used not a hover, but what's that called when they, when those things fly over that you can control them? Anyway.
A drone?
Yeah, drone. They sent I think it was it could have been a kidney or something, and they sent it by a drone.
Wow.
To where it had to go. So that's like the Jetsons. I was very excited about that. But you ought to go. They ought to hire you every time a city council is hemming and hawing about doing what you said. They ought to send you there and have you talk about it. It's what you said before, that unless you walk in someone else's shoes in anything, you really don't know what it is. But some people are very compassionate and they have a lot of humanitarian instincts and they do what's right.
Yeah, and you would hope more and more people would kind of look at that and really try to make the better changes for society. But again, people just don't realize, it takes a small act to figure out we need a ramp here or we need an elevator here or, these kind of things to just make life so much easier. And I'm blessed, because, I don't have legs, but if I was in a situation, I could get out of my chair on my butt, pick up my wheelchair, and lift it in. But to a 70 or 80-year-old man or woman, they're not going to have that ability. So I can still do the things that I can do that, shake some heads and turn some heads and stuff like that. But it's for the other people that I really care about and want to make sure that they have the accesses and the abilities to enjoy life like everybody else.
You are one beautiful human being, and it's such an exciting thing to know you and to, of course, your friends Rob and Scott adore you, and they were so thrilled to have you down here. I think they ran you wild down. You exhausted them, I think, when you were down here.
Yeah, we had a great time. I really appreciate Perfect Edge Botanicals and the whole culture of hemp extract and CBD, and again the education of cannabis versus hemp and what it's doing for me and my body, and again trying to open up minds and trying to change people's thoughts and educations of what they think one way of life is and trying to get it better. And so I appreciate Rob and Scott and Jason and those guys really helping to try to improve lives, and it really has improved my life. And now I'm here to try to educate and help other people's as well.
Talk about your books. Now you went over that pretty quickly. I saw some really cute books, and I don't know if you wrote them, but you have one you're writing now, aren't you? About what is it all about?
We're working on my life story. As I said, I work with Disability Dream and Do. They've got a children's book that's out called A Pound of Kindness, which is about Dave Clark, who pitched on crutches. He's the only minor league baseball player ever to pitch on crutches. I was the only minor league baseball player to play without legs. So they've got a children's book. We're working on mine. I also appear in another book called America at the Seams, which is the 50 best baseball stories in the history of baseball for each state, and they chose mine out of Arizona, which is it's really humbling. So I've appeared in 3 or 4 books, which is pretty bizarre to think that people are impressed enough about you to write about and to document your brush with them and your life. So working on my book and doing my motivational speaking and traveling around the country. And at 53, I'm doing more than I ever thought I would be at this point in my life. I'm living the dream, just enjoying traveling around, meeting people like you, Anita, and all the people at the conference, and, just trying to show people that it's okay to think outside the box and live your life a little differently. And we all have those kind of handicaps. And what I try to tell people is you have to figure out what yours is and how you're going to overcome it.
That's wise words. And you are so articulate. I could see where you were quite famous on ESPN. Would you like to go back doing things like that again?
I would love to at a bigger level. When I got laid off from ESPN in 2015, they laid off 350 people for the first wave, and didn't think I'd have to reinvent myself. When you're making, over $100,000 and life is great, you've got 3 boys and, life is great, and suddenly all that's taken away. And they said, oh, you've got the golden ticket. You don't have legs. You'll never get fired. Well, that wasn't the golden ticket. But, my friend said, hey, you've had this amazing life. Go talk about it. Teach people. And it's all kind of worked out. In the last couple of years, Anita, I've really had the greatest time in my life. Like I said, going to Super Bowls and traveling around the country and interviewing celebrities. And I got to play football at halftime at Lambeau Field before 70,000 people last year in a flag football game. So again, I say I've lived a Forrest Gump life because Forrest Gump did all these amazing things, meeting President Nixon and all. I know it was fiction, but my life isn't fiction, I was on a TV show with Tiger Woods when he was 5 and I was 14, and I pinch hit for Darryl Strawberry, and I tried out for the Dallas Cowboys. And if you just wrote all the things that I've done on one side of a page, and then you said, oh, by the way, that guy didn't have any legs, nobody would believe it. They'd be like, this is not even a Hollywood story. It's beyond Harry Potter fantasy. But it's true. So, had I lived in the viral age of nowadays, maybe I'd be bigger. Maybe Leonardo DiCaprio would be playing me in my life story. I don't know. But, I played in the 80s, so there wasn't a lot of, there was no internet. There was just word of mouth, and, I got to appear on a couple of TV shows. But, I really have had a really amazing life, and it's far from over. I'm going to continue to try to do the things I do, make an impact, teach, motivate, educate, whatever you want to call it, until nobody wants me anymore.
Well, I was just going to say, that's not going to happen to you because you have a great spirit. Tell me, if you don't mind, how old are you?
53.
So, see, you have another. I wrote a book called Live to be 100 Plus. You have another 50 years, so I don't know what you're going to do with your life. With this whole thing, your kids are going to get married. They're going to. Yeah. You'll be a grandfather, a great grandfather. But I was also thinking, I think you could be great on some sort of a TV show. It could be. You see all these shows now. They're always looking for new material. I think you could be quite a star in one of them. I don't know if anyone's found you yet to do that, but you ought to get an agent maybe, because your show would be very successful. You would be, if people didn't see that you didn't have legs, it wouldn't be any different than anybody else. But once they see that, I think they would be so mesmerized by you.
I would love to. I see they have the shows for little people. They have, people getting married at first sight, or, people with big beards that invent duck calls. And I'm thinking, well, heck, why couldn't they throw in this little legless guy and have me with my kids and call it
exactly.
3.5 Men or something like that?
That's good.
And the things that I do, the day to day with my girlfriend Elena, and we, travel around, and because everybody, everyone's always staring at me. Everyone's looking at me in my life, no matter what.
Sure.
I'm not a rock star yet. I get the attention of that because it's curious, and then people want to take second looks, and I'm just oblivious to it. Like, I went to the beach for the first time last week when I was down there.
Yeah.
And again, all heads are looking because you don't see a guy without legs on the beach. And so, I have to deal with that, and I just have to block out those things. Otherwise, I would just have to sit inside the house all day if I was afraid of people looking at me and staring at me.
Sure.
And I think it takes an evolution for you to build up that tough skin. And I think a lot of people don't have that with a disability because it sucks to be stared at. And if you don't have anything else to do in life except live, day to day and barely able to move, that's a very tough life. So I'm very lucky that I can do what I can do and the things that I've been able to do. And, I'd love to be on TLC and have some sort of fun TV show or something out there.
I think you would be very inspirational. It would be very good. Well, it looks like we're running out of time, but Dave, I feel it's such a privilege that I got to meet you, and you have, of course, caused so many people to be inspired, and will continue to do that. And I want to stay in touch, and And if I have any opportunity to help in any way to get you into something, you can bet your life I'm going to do that. So, Dave, thank you so much, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks. They can go to davestevens.com or just Google Dave Stevens on YouTube.
I know. I did. There were so many wonderful YouTubes with you. Thank you, Dave. Talk to you again. All right. Bye.